You're listening to the Fan Club Podcast, where two polar opposites discover each other's fandoms for the very first time.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Fan Club Podcast. My name's Matthew,
This is Sarah.
and today is episode 39, and the second episode of Moon Knight.
We are covering episodes 3 and 4. We finished the show today, and to be completely honest with you, several hours later, I still don't know how to feel about it.
Is it the same as how you felt with Wanda, or not Wanda, Falcon and Loki? Because Loki, you still have questions about Loki.
I don't know, because I think it's because, especially in episode 5, it goes completely off the rails. And, these are the two episodes that, in today's episode that we're covering, I was like, ooh, I don't know if I like the show anymore. I didn't.
Where they were still semi-normal, but
I was back in at episode 5, but also I'm still very confused.
I mean, Moon Knight's one of those things where you don't really fully understand him. Because in the comics, he's even harder to understand. He has a version of him that fights like Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Captain America.
Yeah.
So far, where does this stack
So
TV shows wise?
having finished our, obviously we still have Miss Marvel and She-Hulk to get to.
Or the 5 that we have watched so far.
So far it goes WandaVision, Hawkeye, Loki, Falcon,
Moon Knight.
Moon Knight.
So Moon Knight's our least favorite. For me,
I don't know, honestly.
because for me it goes.
Maybe it is Falcon at the bottom. I think maybe Falcon's at the bottom.
Okay. So mine goes Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Falcon, Loki, Wanda. Loki and Falcon will swap depending on the mood I'm in.
Yeah.
Because I really like Moon Knight in the comics. He is psychologically, he is a very interesting character.
Yeah, I'm
Just to put in perspective still, we are not therapists. We don't fully understand.
Yeah, we're trying not to. This will come into play a little bit more in episode 5. When we talk about episode 5 in the next episode on Friday. But
we just
like
want to clarify
the psychological aspects, we don't really have authority to be speaking on. We're just gonna try to
do it
speak on
from the show.
Yeah, we're trying to just speak about the characters and not necessarily any parallels to real life disorders. 'Cause I don't want to say anything that is offensive or anything.
Yes. So if we say something offensive, let us know.
We're trying to go into this show and try to talk about the show just talk about the characters, talk about the facts, and not try. Obviously, we do bring in real life things, and like references to other fandoms and things like that because that's just what we do here. There's
really not one like this.
But what I'm
fandom.
trying to say is like we're trying specifically on that front. I don't want to. It's a very serious disorder, and I don't want to offend anybody by saying
we don't want to put it lightly.
Yeah,
we don't want to seem like we're.
So when we reference those types of
personalities, things like that,
we just want to reference it in reference to the show and the characters. We don't want to say it from because we're not therapists. So
no, not in the slightest.
So episode 3 is entitled "The Friendly Type."
Yes.
And it opens with Layla getting her passport.
Getting a fake passport.
And the older lady in the scene, it took me a while to place her. And at first I thought it was like a Harry Potter person. It's not. It's actually, if anyone's ever seen Orange is the New Black, she is Rosa, the older lady that has cancer. In that show.
Isn't Orange is the New Black the first Netflix original?
Yeah, I believe so. In Orange is the New Black, I believe she has a New York accent.
Okay.
And in real life, she's British. And so I had a hard time placing her, and I immediately thought she was from Harry Potter. Like, I thought she was like the fat lady or even like Aunt Marge or something, but it wasn't. It's yeah, she's from Orange is the New Black. And it's like I didn't place it at first, and then as soon as I placed it, I looked her up on IMDb and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. So then we go to Arthur in the desert with his guys, and he has the scarab.
Yes, the scarab that is leading them to Ammit's relic.
Her tomb.
Yes. Her tomb. Do they actually ever say tomb? Or do they just say relic?
And all the while, Arthur does not know that Mark is in Egypt at all.
No.
Um, and
Or no, he gets told.
well, no, he gets told in this scene.
Yeah. He's like, okay, boss, we have a problem.
'Cause
Mark's
I
here.
I thought Arthur was the one that at the end of the last episode, I thought that Mark got taken there by Arthur.
No.
It's kind of how it made it
No,
seem.
he was talking to Khonshu at the end of it. He and Khonshu, remember, they were talking in the by the steeples. He says something, or Khonshu says something along, or he's like, "How are we going to get there for them?" He's like, "I have a way." And then it just the camera pans towards the sky, and then the next scene you see him drinking in a Egyptian hotel. I'm guessing
Hmm.
is the next scene.
Yeah. Mark basically finds these three guys on the roof, three of Arthur's men.
I don't think he's art. No, he was looking for someone else, and then he saw that those men killed the guy that he was trying to find. He's like, okay, now you're going to tell me the info then.
Yeah,
And
and you were making some interesting notes about this scene.
so, from what it looks like, slight spoils. There's another personality. This is strictly from the comics.
You knew all along there was going to be three personalities.
Yes, but there's a third personality.
I imagine most people who are listening to these have seen the whole show. So I don't
Yes,
think this is
but
spoiling.
that's the thing. You only know about the third just from a couple brief thing, like the brief thing in episode 5,
Hmm.
which I don't know if you caught or not.
Oh, it was the thing shaking.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then the end scene credit were the only two, and this part in 3 down about
Well, I think we kind of always had a I think we always had a
suspicion.
suspicion. Can't talk apparently. All along we've kind of known that like Steven is the really docile one, Mark is kind of the more assertive one,
But
but they weren't Mark wasn't violent.
no, so here's the thing. When they both black out, if you remember from episode, is that episode 1? When he goes to Germany, when he blacks out like that, all the people are dead around. In
Mhm.
this scene, Mark disarms. He doesn't attack. It's more in self-defense. So Mark doesn't like to kill.
He disarms. So
Yeah,
like if you notice he'll like steal the guy's knife and like knock it out of his hand
yeah, like
or
he'll hit the hand against the ledge and throw the knife aside.
yeah.
Mark fights with his fists. He doesn't fight with,
With a weapon.
besides when he's in,
He is Moon Knight.
unless if he is Moon Knight or in his Moon Knight outfit. But when he's normal fighting, he disarms, which I think that's an interesting.
It is very subtle.
But it makes sense now when you think that there's a third personality.
Well, and it does when you think about there's a third personality, we do have this confirmation.
Yeah.
Once you start thinking about certain scenes in different
You're like,
light.
it makes sense.
So then Steven takes over very briefly.
Or they're talking in the Blade. They're talking in Blade
I did forgot to mention it in the last episode, but the show had a really clever use of mirrors and mirror like objects.
to talk to each other.
So like in the last episode where they had, I forgot to mention it, I'm sorry. But in the storage unit episode where the walls look like mirrors, like they're very
Yeah.
reflective.
Yeah.
Um, and like any reflective surface,
They
realistically.
can talk to each other.
I
Like,
really like how clever that
they were
is.
talking in the Blade when Mark, because Mark also passes out, and one of them is dead.
Hmm.
And they come to,
In a car on the way to the airport.
yeah, and he sees them. They jump out. He's chasing them. He gets knocked out, and next thing you know, they're both dead.
This scene was filmed completely with handheld camera,
Mhm.
which was driving me insane. Um,
But you don't really like the handheld camera scenes.
I really don't like handheld camera unless it is incredibly strategic and very
But it was
seldomly
supposed to
used.
be. I mean, it is very seminally used in this show.
Because okay, so I prefer it when it's used in a way to kind of give you anxiety
I mean,
and
that's
like
what this scene was supposed to be.
yeah, I just
It was
like
supposed to be the iconic
I've
chase
used this
scene.
I've used this example for this before, but like the first Hunger Games movie.
Yeah.
When she gets Stung by the Tracker Jackers, for example, and she's
Mhm.
running through the woods, or Deathly Hallows Part One, when
Yeah.
they're running from the Snatchers and they're running through the woods, and it's handy cam footage
Yeah.
because they're anxious
Yeah.
and they're being chased.
It's supposed to give the audience a
And
sense of urgency,
I think that yes, a sense of urgency is a great way to put it.
where it's the same feeling as, like, in a horror movie when you hear, like, the high-pitched whine,
Yes.
where it's supposed to make your heart race.
It just some productions overuse the handy cam,
Mhm.
and it drives me a little bit crazy.
Like, I'm watching a
It's
show like,
nausea-inducing,
I'm watching a
realistically.
show right now called Midnight Club.
Yes.
It's on Netflix. It's part of the Flanderverse, which is amazing. It's like Haunting on Hill House, Bly Manor,
I watched part of it.
Midnight Mass,
I don't really like horror stuff, but I thought the story was really interesting.
where it doesn't real. It's like this one. It's a bunch of teenagers in the 90s, like in a hospice, but it relies on the. There's no handy cams. There's none of that. Where it relies on the music to
It's very classic horror
90s
camera work.
horror. 90s horror.
Yeah, but it's, like, specifically 90s horror camera work.
But done it's 90s camera work, but done in a 2020 way,
Yeah, but,
if
like,
that makes sense.
once you're I don't do not pretend to be a expert on film, I'm just kind of observant about these things
Yeah,
because I find film really interesting.
and I've gotten more observant with seeing
Um,
this stuff.
but I just think that I don't really love the use of the handy cam in this show specifically. I think it overuses it slightly.
But it only does it in, like, the chase scenes, which there isn't that many.
I think that this show, at least this shot, really reminded me of, like, one of those, like, found footage horror movies. Okay, so
Yeah.
this is where we were kind of like, "Oh, there's gotta be a third persona." And then Khonshu makes the world dark. Like, he puts, like,
He moves
the sun in front of the moon.
this moon in front of the sun.
Yeah,
He's the god of the moon,
yes.
so he doesn't move the sun.
And then
That's, Osiris.
they go to a pyramid,
So
and a wall opens up.
they talk like, "How am I going to know what the portal is?" And then a wall opens up and leads to the Great Pyramid of Giza.
And then they met I I apologize for butchering this name. He meets Yetzel? I think that's how you say it.
That no, Yetzel was her name. Hathor,
Yeah.
yeah,
But she's the avatar for Hathor, which is the goddess of love and music.
yes.
And then, like, basically, they're basically having, like, a council of the gods. And
So
I love how the one guy is just a guy. Like, he's just a dude.
what do you
They're
mean?
just all, like, random people.
Yeah. No, so that's the thing. There's a lot more gods than that.
No, 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 I know, but, like, just the people that are there, like, the council people,
Mhm.
I'm just calling them the council, I don't think that that's what they're
No,
actually called.
it's the Council of the Gods. That's what it is.
And we learn that Khonshu was banished before.
For so here's the thing. In Egyptian mythology, the Egyptians gods have always stayed hidden. They don't meddle with mortal affairs, unlike Greek gods,
Mhm.
where Zeus would go down and party. Norse mythology, Thor would come down and party. Hindus, the same thing. A lot of like older African mythologies.
Well, okay, so mythologies, and I've said this to you before, I'm more so talking to the people.
Yeah.
But mythologies tend to borrow things from each other.
Yeah. So like the first
A lot of things are very similar.
yes, like Native American mythology is very similar to African and Egyptian, more of their gods.
Well, that's why if you look at something like a creation story, for example,
Yeah.
a lot of the mythologies have very similar,
There was one being that made
like on the
everything.
back of a turtle.
Yeah.
Like there's a million different, like, stories for things, like
Yeah.
origin stories for things. And also because people travel and take those stories with them,
Yeah.
or they, over the generations and things of that nature, like things kind of develop and change throughout time, which is a really interesting sociological
Mhm.
conversation, the way that these stories change and ebb and flow.
So, I mean, a lot of our
Well,
normal
but also if you look at even the geography, so, like,
mhm.
a lot of these things, ancient Greece is not that far from Egypt.
No. So,
geographically speaking.
yeah, no, geographically, they are very close. So, a lot of the religions in that pocket right there, I mean, Greek and Roman mythology is the exact same.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they existed in different times.
Yes. Like,
However, like generationally, these things could,
mhm,
somebody could be like, "Oh, I heard this thing from a far off land."
yeah, like Roman mythologies are more planet-based. So,
So then the God Council summons Arthur. And okay, I'm just gonna say this right now. I really don't like Arthur.
this
I find
dude
he gaslights so hard.
this dude is the king of gaslighting.
And I know, especially nowadays, that word is thrown around a lot.
But this dude
This guy
made
is so gaslighty.
Khonshu look like he was solely responsible for trying to find Ammit. Which, I mean, technically, Arthur's not wrong, which we learn later in episode 4.
Gaslighting just gets worse.
Like, I felt bad for Khonshu, and Khonshu is a god of death,
Yeah, but like,
and I felt bad for
I don't
Khonshu.
think Khonshu is inherently evil.
No, but Khonshu made Arthur do things that made Arthur question his own morality.
Well, I guess that brings up the conversation: is Khonshu gaslighting Arthur?
No, no, Khonshu's not gaslighting Arthur. So Khonshu, so the difference between Amit and Khonshu, which I know I talked about a little bit in the previous
Well,
episode,
it's that Amit wants to eliminate the evil
evil
before it
at its
happens.
core.
Yeah.
While Khonshu
Basically wants
believes,
to kill baby Hitler.
but Khonshu wants to make sure that they are inherently evil
She wants to eliminate evil before it happens. He wants
to
to
eliminate
punish people for
being evil.
having the evil.
So I mean, which is right? I mean, killing you can't kill someone before they've been bad.
It's an
But
innocent until proven guilty situation though.
is it worse to have the person commit the evil crime?
That's what I'm saying. It's an innocent till proven guilty.
What classifies as evil, though? Could jaywalking be considered evil?
Yeah.
Could speeding? So what would
Yeah, what is like is
what
there a scale? Is there like
I
a
mean, there is a scale.
no, but I'm
I
saying,
know what you mean.
is there, because we don't need to go down too far down this road,
But
but
evil is very relative.
some people view sin as like all, like
But
it's
not
all under the same umbrella. If it's sin, it's sin.
but some people say drinking alcohol is a sin.
This really encroaches on some dangerous territory that we don't really want to touch
Yes.
on that much.
But
But
what's your guys' opinion? Like which one do you think is right? Khonshu for
personally, I'm on Khonshu. I'm a team Khonshu.
yeah, same here. But let us know
Are you team Ammit or team Khonshu?
Sarah will do a poll on Instagram that morning, but it's the
Wednesday
same
morning.
on Wednesday morning. It's the same thing as a philosophical question. Would be killing baby Hitler be a bad thing? That would be a Mitt's perspective, while Khonshu's would be to kill Hitler after what Hitler did. Would it be worse to let
Well, it's really the question of,
do you
are some people inherently evil?
and then
Is it taught
nature or nurture?
anyway?
Yeah, just follow us on Instagram. You get all the updates much quicker on there. We do some stuff on Twitter, but that's mainly me.
I try to get I try to be as more timely on Instagram.
Yeah,
It's you get a lot more stuff in real time.
yes. And then Twitter we get to eventually.
So then we learned that Amit was buried in secret, and there's a magi called Senfu
Yes, so
who knew where she was buried.
do you remember what I told you about the Magi? Magi's were the Pharaoh's protectors. So think like the Secret Service.
Is Senfu a specific magi, or is it just the name of the magi's in total?
No, Sinfu was a particular Magi.
Okay.
I mean, Secret Service has their own names. The Magi
Yeah,
is the
no, I
title. And so the Magi's are, there's only one Magi per Pharaoh. He's like the Secret Service, but he doesn't do it in hiding. And
and they go to find this guy who has a sarcophagus.
yes,
And it's this guy who has like like this medieval time style like jousting.
javelin, jousting,
It's
some pole
seriously,
dance. Some like pole dance on horses.
it gave me big medieval times energy. And basically he has these giant like Louvre-esque pyramids in the back.
Just holding sarcophagus size?
Sarcophagi?
Sarcophagus?
Which I'm like, why do you just have these open glass pyramids of like valuable objects in your backyard?
I don't know.
Seems like a choice.
So Senfu buried himself with the map to find the tomb.
And so it's Mark in the body right now, and then Steven in his brain is instructing him to make the star, which
Or to make the constellation.
yeah, which turns into a star.
Yeah.
Um, and then the guys like catch him.
Like talking to himself.
Um, oh, his name was Anton. The
Anton.
guy with the medieval times.
Why is everyone named Antoine evil?
Anton.
Anton evil. Right? Like I can't think of a single
Did Scott Lang name any of his aunts Anton? I know he had an Antonia.
yes, he had an Antoine. If it had the name Ant in it, he named it.
His
Yeah, it was
That's what that made me think of.
those ants that were it was in the scene in Ant-Man 2 when the seagull was eating all the ants in the air.
Oh, yeah. I knew that there had to have been an Anton.
My favorite one is still Antonio Banderas.
Banderas.
That's still my favorite one.
That's what it made me think of.
Mhm.
Um, and so then Arthur arrives and offers Anton the scarab
Mhm.
and
I don't
the
think
gaslighting king.
yes.
I really cannot stand this guy. I Ethan Hawke did a really good job making me hate him.
He I Haro is a genius though. He gaslit a god. Someone is trying to convince someone of something like if I was trying to
To
convince
question your reality.
yeah, to question your reality. Like to make you second guess and to make other people second guess
That
your
is a
reality.
very brief overview of what that is.
Yeah.
And the name comes from like an old it's not a Hitchcock movie, but it's somewhere in that type
So
of vein.
there's also
There's a movie called Gaslight.
there so not to bring DC into this, but there's an animated Batman film called Gotham by Gaslight, which is also the city's lit by gaslight, but also Batman and Selena Kyle, Catwoman, gets very gaslit in it with them saying who the bad guy is, but
And
things
I,
like that.
right now, where like a lot of people bring that word into a conversation, and I know a lot of people have thought that it's started to lose its meaning because people overuse it. But I genuinely think that Arthur is
100% gas.
gaslighting.
Oh,
Again, I'm
absolutely.
not a doctor, but like I understand what
He
gaslighting
made
is.
me believe. Like, I know the outcome of this show, but Haro made me believe
Well,
that Haro was correct.
he made me question the reality of the show
Yes.
in a lot of ways, especially later.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Mark summons the suit, and there's a really cool shot of him flying through the air, and the cloak like hit the
It's
cape.
a crescent moon.
It's so
I
cool.
love the Moon Knight outfit. I
We've
absolutely
been talking. We were talking that Matthew has a very similar body type to Khonshu, like because he's really tall. And I think that he could do a really cool Khonshu
I just don't
cosplay.
I just don't know how I would make
His
the
neck is like
face.
invisible, so I don't know how you would do
That
that.
part that's not even the part I'm concerned about. It's how I'm gonna
The
make the
mask.
bird beak. Yeah.
So basically, the guys are like shooting at Mark, and
He just
he
absorbs the bullets
he flings
and
them back
then like he absorbs the bullets with his cape, like protecting Layla
like a shield.
as a shield, and then he just twists and like launches them.
Kind of like if you were to like I don't know if you guys have seen those TikToks of the guy who like sets the table and then like whips
That's
the
always been a thing.
tablecloth underneath.
It's a magic trick.
No, I know. Or like when I don't know
If you remember in elementary
if your
school,
grandma taught you how to make a bed and you can bounce a quarter off of it. It was
it
similar to
it
that.
reminded me of do you remember in elementary school with the ball in the middle of the giant like tarp
Kindergarten?
kindergarten? Where
Like the giant like rainbow
yes, where you would
spiral.
just fling the ball up?
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
Where you would just do it in the middle and you would just like pull it
The
towards you.
parachute thing.
Yeah, with the parachute. And
I
then
just remember like lifting it up and then everybody going inside.
yeah.
Yeah, that was like kindergarten.
Oh, we did that all in all of elementary school. In PE. In PE, we had a giant one for like 60
I
kids.
say kindergarten. I was homeschooled for kindergarten, so I guess first grade.
Yeah, in elementary school, we had one that would fit 60 kids around.
That's a big one. My school is really tiny, so
Yeah, no. My elementary school was probably bigger than my high school where I went.
Ba, 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 ba.
But I mean, I'm sorry, but this suit puts Batman
Soup?
suit this suit put Batman suit into shame. Like,
Batman soup. So Steven takes over, and then Layla, she basically this whole episode has been wearing this like cardigan thing with these moons on it, and she like takes them and like rips them off and then stabs the guy a la Moon Knight.
mm-hmm.
Which okay, other than Arthur, I think Layla might be my least favorite person in this entire show. I just kind of find her boring.
Until episode 6.
I think
Until the end of episode 6.
yeah, until the end of episode 6, I could just take her or leave her. I really like her at the
But
end.
without her, Mark would not have
I
found.
just find her kind of useless up until
But
then.
Mark would not have found Sensu's sarcophagus.
Senfu.
Senfu's the Magi's sarcophagus.
hmm And then Layla, yeah, she stabs the guy, and then Layla and Mark get away,
Oh no,
and
Layla or Mark is stabbed all over the place, being held down
yeah,
right after this, and he does this cool flip move, and like
that was really cool.
because Antoine is coming to kill Layla with one of the spear pole dancing thingamajigs,
The jousting stick?
the jousting stick.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, hell no!" And he does the cool flip move and knocks everyone out. And he runs. He moves Layla out of the way and throws one of his moonerangs at Antoine. And Antoine, you hear a thud, or you hear like the boomerang hitting him, and a thud, and he just falls.
hmm and so then they need Steven to help solve the puzzle thing, and they learn that it's a constellation.
Nation.
And Khonshu remembers the night
He remembers every night
that because they need the stars to
to,
look like that night.
to be in a certain place. It's
And
also been 2,000 years.
so then Khonshu basically like is able to rotate.
Khonshu and Steven rotate the sky back 2,000 years. And it looks so cool.
I love I love that scene so much I put it in the promos
Hmm.
because I just think cinematically it is a really cool.
And you see how the stars and everything moves. You see.
Yeah, and like being as a kid, I was such a astrology nerd.
Hmm.
Ast- uh, Astronomy, sorry, not astrology.
You were really
Astronomy.
into the zodiac.
No. Astronomy. Not like I did take astronomy in my senior year of high school, and it was far too much math for my liking.
I would have absolutely loved that. My high school had that. I would have loved to do that. That would have been so awesome.
It was a lot of math, and I failed physics, so it was like
Yeah, no, you would have been terrible at that.
it was really hard, but I liked it from like the I liked learning about like the different stars and planets and things.
Shoot, most of our constellations are Greek and Roman. Most of our constellations are. My favorite is Orion.
I just wish that class did not have nearly as much math as it had.
Of course, it has to have math. You know, each star, technically, the stars that we see are actually dead. Because, I mean, like, think about it. The sun takes 8 light minutes to get to us. And stars are billions, if not trillions, of miles away. So that's light years away. So most of the stars that we see now are done, are dead.
hmm
And it's just taking this long for us to see it.
Basically, they get the GPS coordinates of the tomb. I do find these
Which,
I do find these specific two episodes that we're going to talk about today a little convenient. There are certain parts of these episodes that I just find to be like, okay, sure.
no,
I've
but
had
the
a hard
tomb,
time like
but,
suspending my
but here's the
disbelief.
thing, they weren't far from the tomb. The tomb looked like it was right over the ridge
Like
from where they were.
after like episode 5, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm in. The show's weird and
Yeah.
wacky, but I'm okay with it. This episode, it was starting to get a little frustrating to me because it felt like they were trying so hard to wrap things up. I just had an issue with it structurally.
Hmm.
I had nothing bad to say about the story itself. It was just the way that they were clearly trying to shove everything into 6 episodes.
But here's the thing, it was set up to be a limited series.
Yeah, and that's fine. And like I
That's
said
why it was put into the Oscar for a limited series, so they physically cannot make a second season.
no, I just feel like they somewhat needed. I'm glad that it wasn't longer, but at the same time, there were certain things that felt really rushed and kind of convenient.
But I mean, it would have been a lot worse in a movie.
I agree with you. That's why I'm kind of.
That's why none of these TV shows could have been movies.
There were just certain choices that were done, i.e., the GPS coordinates that were just. I don't know how else they would have done it, so I don't really have any input on that front. But it just was a little frustrating as a viewer to um to suspend my disbelief a little bit.
Yeah,
Um just structurally.
but I mean, and then we see Khonshu get imprisoned
The episode
by
basically ends with
Con-
Arthur talking to like a little.
Osiris.
Yeah.
So Arthur and Osiris. So right before this, all the remaining gods, which there's
Mhm.
only 5 in Egyptian mythology, there's like 15, and they've imprisoned essentially 10 of them. Which we'll see more of that later of the other gods imprisoned. But they imprisoned Khonshu because of Khonshu's manipulating people or
And
manipulating the sky,
yes. And then episode 4 is entitled The Tomb.
and it's
There's
just.
another upside down shot of
Mhm.
him walking into the tomb. The show really loves its own upside down shots. And then there's a shot of all of these tiny little statues, and
That's
so
right.
all of the gods have
That
these little action figures, so to speak.
they're the imprisonment of the gods. And so we also see the reconclusion of the conversation that Haro and Khonshu were having, where Haro pretty much says, "You are to be or I am thankful for how you treated me because you pretty much gave me the win."
And then Layla and Steven are getting chased by Arthur's people,
Hmm.
and she finds a flare and uses it as a distraction to beat the guy.
Yeah. And then she throws another flare into the back of a explosion in the a ton of explosives, and their vehicle pretty much blows up.
Yeah, and then they hop in a car together. Mark comes out and promises to leave when everything is over, so that Layla can have peace, and she is pissed.
No, it's Stevens. No, Mark doesn't come out. Mark is talking through the mirror to Steven.
Oh, you're right.
And Steven tells Layla, he tells her why Khonshu wants her, or why Mark left
Hmm.
in the first place was because Khonshu wants Layla to be his avatar. And if Mark fails and dies, Layla becomes it. Which, I mean, I can't blame him. Layla is strong. She has the Egyptian knowledge. She has the archaeology knowledge. Do all of this. Plus the fighting skill, which
Yeah.
we saw in episode 3.
And
I
then
just wonder what her suit will look like
yeah,
with Khonshu.
they make it to the tomb, and Mark and Steven argue about Layla, and Mark is like, "Are you in love with her?" Which I could
So,
have done without this weird love triangle.
because, no, Steven and Layla kiss each other. But I think it was more because he was being nice to her. And I got a feeling it was more of like a sympathy kiss.
Yeah, or like a "I'm gonna calm you down" kiss.
Yes. Because Steven was also freaking out being in a tomb.
Well, and then they find climbing. Um,
And they climb down, and Steven sort of falls down.
well, and Mark punches Steven. Like he punches himself.
Yes.
And then they fall into the tomb, and the tomb they basically um they find out that the tomb is in the shape of the Eye of Horus.
No. The tomb's not. They see the symbol of the Eye of Horus.
Hmm.
And you didn't know this, but the Eye of Horus represents all 6 senses.
Yes. And okay, so the Eye of Horus, if you literally know anything about Egyptian mythology, even a little bit,
The Eye of
you
Horus,
know what the Eye of Horus looks like.
yes. That's like the big Egyptian icon.
Motif.
And each part represents a part of them. And the first Magi was to protect Horus. So in Egyptian mythology, Horus is the only god that was turned from a pharaoh in Egyptian mythology. He was well loved and respected and everything, and he acquired god status by the people. He was revered when he died as a god. And in most mythologies, if you have enough people believe in something, they turn into a god. Like for example, in American Gods by Neil Gaiman, there's this is going to be kind of confrontational, but this is just from a book and a TV show. There's a bunch of different Jesuses at this party because every different controversial has a different representation what Jesus looks like. And if you believe in something hard enough, you can make it true. It's the same thing if you believe in something bad is going to happen. You are releasing negative energy into the world.
Not to get into this, but you're almost kind of like manifesting it
Yes.
a little bit.
Yeah. So
'Cause if you're so anxious about something happening,
more than
it's almost like
likely,
a self-fulfilling prophecy a little.
yeah, and it's the same thing with a lot of the gods in older mythologies, where if you manifested something enough, it will come true.
So
So,
we learned that
yeah,
her final avatar was a pharaoh, and they basically find this what I'm calling an altar. I don't know.
it's a sacrificial altar.
And they find fresh blood,
Yes, so they were sacrificing people there.
and Harrow finds them.
No, it wasn't Pharaoh.
Harrow,
It wasn't Harrow. It was one of their. No, it wasn't a jackal. It was one of the
Heka,
It was the Heka.
which is a sorcerer,
Yes,
and they hide what
so the Hekas were the ones that would perform the mummifications.
sacrifice.
Not the mummification, like taking out the organs with the utensils to leave everything but the heart.
I really like. So basically, Layla goes and climbs up a wall, and she gets caught by the Heka,
Uh-huh.
and she ends up stabbing a flare in its eye.
No, that was outside. That was on the ledge.
Oh,
Yes, that was on the ledge,
okay.
wasn't it?
This is
No, the one that was on the ledge she just threw that one over because it was going towards Steven because Steven climbed up and was on like a wooden platform. No, Steven's crushed that one. The flare one was the one on the cliff.
hmm And then Arthur arrives, and so there's the scene between Arthur and Layla, and then it's intercut with a scene of Stephen
Finding
find the tomb.
finding the tomb and
So he realizes that the tomb, the sarcophagus, is Alexander the Great,
yes, the loss. That's the thing. Alexander the Great was never a prophet.
a pharaoh.
Or he was never a pharaoh.
Mhm.
Or technically, here's the thing. He might have been for
Never
a
confirmed to be.
I think he was. I don't remember. I know a lot more about the Greek gods than I do the pharaohs. But the pharaohs were supposed to be gods, representations of gods,
Hmm.
which makes sense why his because Alexander the Great was also a great fighter and a great general and a great leader, which makes sense why what he was Amit's avatar. It makes sense when you think about it. He was a great leader. He conquered half of the known world at that time.
hmm
Was under Egyptian rule. So I mean, it
Um,
makes sense.
yes. And we learned that Layla's dad was an archaeologist, so I'm led to
Hmm.
believe. So then back to Stephen, he rips the mouth of the mummy open,
Yeah,
and he
because
finds
he realizes that on there's a hint on where it is.
yeah, and he finds the little statue, which is called an Ushapti.
Yeah,
I hope I'm saying that right.
so Ushati is what's also holding all the other gods,
hmm
which makes me think if I was
No, the
Layla,
Ushapti is just like the what the little figures are called.
no, that's where the god is. That's what the
Yeah,
gods imprisoned in.
that's what the little figure
No,
is called.
I know. That's the tomb. That's where they're imprisoned. Is in that.
hmm Mark didn't kill her dad, but he was there, and his
Yes.
partner killed him.
Yes, because he tells Stephen what happened. And so at this point, he doesn't have Khonshu. He lost his Moon Knight abilities. And then, of course, Haro shows up and just kills him.
No, well,
Or
Mark
Layla
uses
shows up.
Mark Mark comes out
Hmm.
and he uses the ancient axe from Alexander the Great's tomb,
Yeah.
and he starts beating everybody with it, and then Arthur shoots him.
Yeah.
And I said he cannot be dead.
And that's pretty much the end of that
But I
episode.
guess in Loki, they quote unquote killed Loki in the 4th episode. I'm pretty sure. And then we get 2 guys in the jungle,
Hmm.
and a skeleton comes out of nowhere, and I was like, they made a movie about Steven? Is there a big time jump? And
It's
then
pretty much Indiana Jones.
we get, basically they're watching a movie in this like futuristic looking
Or what we
mental
believe is
institution.
futuristic.
Um and it's Steven is in there,
Hmm.
and he has this little figurine of Moon Knight.
Yes.
And we figure out that Arthur is a doctor.
Yeah. In
Um
in here, yeah.
and Mark is starting to come to, and he tries to run away.
But his foot is tied.
Yeah.
Did you catch that?
And then he runs into a room to hide and finds Steven trapped in a sarcophagus
Yes, on the ground because he's hearing like, help me, save me.
in
I'm
Mark's
trapped in here."
voice.
Yeah. No, in Steven's voice.
Yes, that's what I mean.
In
And
Steven's
they're
voice.
separate bodies.
That's the thing.
We got a parent trap situation.
They're in I think they're in their mind.
And then there's another sarcophagus
That
with
we
another
see
person.
later of someone banging. And they
And then
leave
they
that one
open the
alone.
doors, and there's this giant hippo that goes, "Oh, hi!" And that's the end of the episode.
So for episodes 3 and 4, excluding episodes 5 and 6, where does it stack for you? Excluding 5 and 6.
I
Just from
really liked 1 and 2, and I didn't really like 3 and 4, and then I really liked 5 and 6.
okay.
So, at this point, because we watched the rest of the, we watched 1 and 2, and then we one day, and
Or
then
we
we,
watched 1, 2, and 3 in one day.
and then
No, we watched 1 and 2 one day. We watched 3 the next day. And then we watched 4, 5, and 6 today.
and I at this point, before we started the last 2 episodes, I was like,
Where did it stack for?
I didn't like it at
Okay.
this point.
Okay.
Um,
But that's how the TV shows have been for you. You don't like the first half.
I liked the first episode a lot. I thought
Yeah.
it was really interesting and really different. I don't really like how this show, I'm gonna use the word again, gaslights me into,
It's just horror.
yeah, I just don't like, I guess WandaVision gaslights you a little bit too. But it was questioning really the reality and questioning what's going on. I didn't really love that aspect of it, but the last 2 episodes really saved it because they were so interesting.
Yeah.
And so wacky.
Yes.
Um, so what about you?
I really like Moon Knight because it is different than anything else we've had. Which I know I say that in every single TV
All the
show,
TV shows are so different from each other.
but this is so different than most of the MCU because we've never had a character like Moon Knight. Like, yes, we've had characters, but we've never had one that relied on someone else for their power,
Well, and
if
I
that makes
think
sense.
I think this show, while we could have watched it way, way earlier than we did, I don't think I would have had an appreciation for it until now. Okay, so that is the end of this episode. Join us on Friday for the finale of TV show month. Finally!
Yay! Back to the movie.
It's been a very long month if you can't tell. So yeah, join us on Friday,
I
and
mean, this is the last episode of November.
this is the last episode of November. Happy December. Follow us on Instagram and on TikTok for some advent calendar content.
Yes, and then on YouTube, I will probably be doing Lego, like Advent Marvel themed Advent calendar Lego building.
Hmm.
Just small little time lapses once a day or maybe once a week and just do all 7 in one episode.
Also, I'm gonna push it again. Support us on Patreon if that's something you want to do. We have a $1, a $3, and a $5 tier, and
The $3 you get behind the scenes,
content.
like my deep dives on different characters, which I need to I have a few more that we just need to edit, and we'll have a ton more up pretty soon. But yeah, if there's any, just like I say in every episode, if you want a specific comic book character from, it can be any fandom. It can be DC, Marvel, Dark Horse, Vertigo,
Okay.
etc. Just let me know, and I will do a deep dive on them, and I will also give you a shout out on the Patreon.
Yep. And yeah, that's about it. We'll see y'all on Friday.
Bye.
If you'd like to send us any feedback or messages, you can follow us on Instagram at thefanclub_podcast, follow us on Twitter at fanclub_podcast, and chat with us over on reddit.com/r/fanclubpodcast. And don't forget to tune in every Marvel Monday. See you next time. Bye.